Okay. Okay, welcome to Indonesia Pavilion. I hope you are all well and ready for the upcoming discussion. We will present to you the latest development on regulation in climate finance, exploring instruments, framework, mechanisms that have potential to unlock the various opportunities in climate finance. So to set or to frame the context, allow me to invite our keynote speaker. He is the Director of Forest Utilization Business Development from the Ministry of Forestry, Indonesia. Please welcome Bapak Ilham.
Oh, udah. Yeah. Thank you for the beautiful MC. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang dan selamat malam teman-teman yang ada di online. Allow me to thank you by expressing my sincere appreciation for the opportunity to attend this important session by offline and online. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia has used natural landscape, and also we have the great news. Yeah, we have already the new president regulation number 110 year 2025 and on the implementation of the economic value of carbon. This president regulation in forestry sector perspective has advantages such as the first one is Indonesia is the natural capital powerhouse of the world, with our forest, peatland and mangrove holding the key to unlocking vast carbon value. And this president regulation also we can make protection, restoration, and social forestry program. We can generate significant carbon value while ensuring benefit flow directly to local communities, rural household, and indigenous people. The third, Indonesia, for optimize the carbon trading in forestry sector could create significant number of the job at the project site and generate billions in annual trading value. By linking carbon opportunities with community-based forest management, these papers enable conservation to go hand in hand with the prosperity. Our national park also hold the untapped potential to mobilize the climate finance, creating sustainable revenue stream for the conservation and communities alike. And within the new papers, we gain access to cross-sector market and international linkage, expanding opportunities and global competitiveness. New regulation enables Indonesia offset to operate with the international standard and Article 6 mechanism, and this will unlock access to international carbon finance, while ensuring high integrity carbon credit through a robust process for applying corresponding adjustment. And the last, for these papers, we can make effective governance and efficient business process, safeguarding environmental integrity and positive social co-benefit. Carbon market ecosystem will serve as a vehicle for economic diversification and community empowerment. And aligned for the new papers, we can, for these papers, there are three fundamental change, different with the all president regulation. The first one is the integration of the planning, permitting, and the project cycle. The second, harmonization of the universal carbon principle with national regulatory frameworks, and alignment of the MRV and assurance system to ensure long-term project credibility. And this is three fundamental is different from the last president regulations. And line to the new president regulation, now we are going to make the draft of the Ministry of Forestry regulations. We have the mandate to build high integrity and high quality product as follow. The first one is high quality for the PDD. The second is application of universal principle. It means we have to follow the standard and methodology of the international. And the third is insurance. The fourth is benefit sharing agreement to community. We want that this project, carbon project, doesn't have social conflict and also the tenorial conflict. And the most important is the five is different from the high integrity and the other project is biodiversity protection, biodiversity and environment protection. That we Indonesia almost released for the ministry regulation, but until now we have to make the follow of the international standard and methodology. So before we release the Ministry of Regulation, we want that all stakeholders, even though they're from the international, give the input for our ministry regulations. And ladies and gentlemen, and also for the important, we have the SRUK, yeah, SRUK, and SRUK is different than SRN PPI, because in SRUK we have the two systems. System one is the allowance, and the second is carbon credit. Yeah, and also for the allowance, it's not the certificate. Allowance is only for the account for the permit. It's different from the carbon credit. So, and the others, we have the transparency, we have traceability, and also we have the real-time operation for the SRUK. And the fourth is permanence. And interoperability, yes, we have the interoperability because we want that international certificate can be registered in the SRUK. Not carbon registry, but register. And decentralized security for the SRUK and efficiency also. And the last, we have the government readiness for embedding clear institutional roles, approval workflow, and audit logs. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, what we are building today is a foundation for the future. One in which forests become economic asset, local communities become central actor, yeah, local communities, and Indonesia emerged as a leading hub for the global carbon trading. Through collaboration between government, the private sector, academia, indigenous people, local communities, and international partners, we can ensure that economic value of the carbon become not only a market instrument but also a vehicle for sustainability, equity, and shared prosperity. As we move forward, I invite all stakeholders to work together, strengthening high integrity project, expand responsible investment, and build a carbon market ecosystem that truly delivers transformative impact. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Ilham, for the keynote highlighting the regulatory framework of the new issuance regulations for carbon economic value. He also did mention that forest is an important economic asset. So we will dig into the strategies to encourage greater both domestic and globally climate finance and investment into follow sector, as well as to explore how to maximize the potential transfer of ITMOs between and among the countries. And this forum also serves to build a common understanding regarding Indonesia's carbon market regulatory framework to drive and to improve access to global climate finance. I will call upon the speakers one by one. Please welcome Bapak Lufaldi Ernanda from Indonesia Financial Services Authority. Mr. Andrea, I get it right. Andrea Bonzani, International Policy Director, International Emissions Trading Association, or IETA. IETA. Okay, the first one is right. Okay, and Lorna Ricci, Director of Public Affairs, Integrity Council for the Voluntary Carbon Market, ICVCM. Jamie Mulligan, Head of Carbon Neutralization Science and Strategy, Amazon. And of course, joining us online, President Director from Musi Hutan Persada Group, Mr. K. Watanabe. And of course, to lead this specific session, we have no one better than Ria Marsudi, CEO for Feratmos.
All right, thank you very much. How is everyone doing today? Great, of course, because we're going to be talking about something really exciting and really important that is fresh from the oven from the latest presidential regulation that opens Indonesia carbon market. My name is Ria. I am the CEO of Feratmos, a landscape restoration and blue carbon project developer, and I'm very excited to ask and have a great conversation with the stellar panelists today. We'll be having three main segments of today's session, in which the first one, we will be listening to the opening statements and introduction from the speakers, and then we're going to be deep diving into the conversations of the today's topic, and I would love to have you to prepare some questions as we go to the last session. Now, before we start the moderated session, we would like to give the panelists a time to give introduction. I would love to give the first floor to Pak Lufaldi Ernanda. Could you please tell us what about Indonesia's carbon regulation that has just opened up? And please share our thoughts about how to navigate the market today.
Thank you, Ria, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Be with all the leaders, thank you for also attending the event. So as Ria mentioned in the beginning, and also Pak Ilham already shared to us the new Perpres, the new regulations, it's now in operation. So then what's kind of next? Okay, so we're going to have. But firstly, one of my job to visit Belém is literally to socialize the Perpres. So I want to check whether I do my job properly or not. So I want to check with you guys here in the room. Raise your hand if you are aware that Indonesia has the new Perpres number 110/2025. Not bad, okay, not bad. But I'll do this better, okay? Not bad. But I can see, like, I don't know, maybe only 15% you guys are aware, okay? So me, representative of the task force, apologize with that. So we'll do better in do the socialization, okay? Because we need to make sure the Indonesian, we have just stipulated the very best architect of the carbon market, number 110 and 2025, while all some other important notes already mentioned by Pak Ilham, okay? But please download and read, because it's English version is ready for public, so read it carefully. Because what? Because by the new presidential decree, we are officially open the 100% VCM, okay? Because what? Because from the forestry perspective, we've been waiting for this new Perpres, so then we can activate the carbon market from the forestry sector. And then we understand it's so complex. Yeah, it's very complex. Think about, there is a primary market, secondary market, supply, demand, VCM, mandatory, and some people saying we prefer the regulated market. And when it comes to the Article 6 in operation, that's also someone confusing. But again, in addition to that, think about someone who has expertise in the energy sector. Someone like Ria has the mastery on the forestry, but someone maybe in the corner has the mastery of industry. So not everyone have the same perspective on this carbon market. Okay, that's why under the new presidential decree, we literally decentralize the leadership to the line ministries instead of the one single ministries. So next time, if you guys visiting Indonesia and meet the government, if you want to talk with the energy carbon market, go to the Ministry of Energy. If you want to go discussion with the relevant to the forestry sector, go to the Ministry and Forestry sector. You know, if you would like to discuss the next ETS of the Ministry of Industry, go to the Ministry of Industry. So that's pretty much the new concept, because we believe none of us here has the whole mastery of this the cross sector. Yeah. So the decentralization is number one, and the second thing is relevant the challenges that we have. Okay, because to be honest, when it comes to the opening the VCA market from the government perspective, we also have to very careful, because when it comes to the high integrity and quality target, there are a lot of requirements. And by opening this VCM doesn't mean that Indonesia is literally open for our so-called the junk carbon thingy, right? So we have to be very careful. That's why we have all this also leadership to talk more on what are the criteria and what are the perspective, But from government perspective, what we have in view is literally just open the market, and we let the B2B, as a business as usual, they work based on the business as usual. But the thing is, next from now onwards, government will be focusing more on the community-based forest, for example. That's where the government exists to support the social and also indigenous people. Okay, so we have the presidential decree release. We have all the, I would say, the Komra. The committee will be working from now onwards to oversee each of these cross sector in Indonesia. Okay, but the thing is, I believe the spirit of the government is pretty much the same with the investor. So yeah, I confirm that buyers, investor come into the Indonesia, and because we are opening the whole VCM scheme, and then where we are here. But again, the thing is, the high quality and high integrity, because we are aware that the existing projects under Indonesia, I would say it's kind of the transitioning, to the, I would say, the natural quality to the high integrity and high quality carbon.
All right. Can we give a round of applause for Pa Aldi, ladies and gentlemen? So 3 takeaways, so you don't have to read the entire 30 pages, right? Number 1, Indonesia is open for business. Indonesia is open for voluntary carbon market. Number 2, sectoral ministry will be the right person for you to talk to. And number 3 is all about integrity and inclusivity. So that's what it says. Let's go to the second speaker, Andrea. Thank you so much for being here. Could you tell us a little bit about AITA and how's the work at AITA, and where do you think Indonesia is in the global carbon market landscape?
Sure. Thank you, Ria, for the invitation. Good morning, everyone. So AITA is a trade association. We have over 300 companies that are our members. And we've been founded in 1999. And since then, we have promoted all types of carbon markets. So emission trading systems, the voluntary markets, as well as international markets such as Article 6 or the Clean Development Mechanism in the days of the Kyoto Protocol. Within AITA, we also have a special initiative called Business Partnership for Market Implementation, or BPMI. And some of you may be familiar with the World Bank's initiative. It's called the PMI. So we share similar objectives. We want to build capacity in countries that are starting to establish their carbon markets, they're engaging with carbon markets, but we come to this from a business perspective. So we engage with local businesses, as Ria knows very well, but also provide the business perspective to public sector stakeholders. So where we are in international carbon markets and what's the place of Indonesia. It was in the presentation of Pa Ilham. Indonesia has the potential to be a powerhouse, to be a superpower in this new market. The market is still in its early stages. we track all the MOUs and bilateral agreements that are signed between countries, and we recently passed the 100 mark. So there has been more than 100 agreements worldwide being signed, and about 60 countries are involved, give or take. Most of this agreement have not translated into immediate transactions. So there hasn't been too many transactions being executed. I think if my count is correct, we only have 3. 2 involve Switzerland as a buyer with Thailand and Ghana, and 1, the most recent, is between Japan and Thailand again as a seller. So Indonesia is party of some of these bilateral agreements, and I think now, and the times are ripe with the new presidential decree, the work can start to implement the project that then will be authorized and will be the basis for transactions. But also there are 2 other, and this is the 6.2 market, so country-to-country bilateral trades. But there are other market segments that are really important and then provide benefit to Indonesia. There's the voluntary carbon market. I don't want to say too much because I'm sure Lorna will elaborate on that. But there is still some demand in the voluntary market from international companies. And the market has gone through a significant transformation in recent years. Fully agree, Aldi. The low quality credits don't have a market anymore. Now project developers need to focus on high quality or high integrity, as we say. And then I'd like to mention the CORSIA market. This is a market for international aviation. So airlines around the world have obligations to offset part of their emissions with carbon credits from eligible programs. And the first compliant deadline is at the end of January 2028. So it's very, very close. And the market is very undersupplied at the moment. A country that wants to supply into this market does not need to have a partner because the buyers are airlines that will buy credits when they are authorized, when they are eligible for CORSIA. So I think Indonesia has definitely the potential to play a strong role in all these 3 market segments. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, everyone. Can we have a round of applause for Andrea for the optimism? So it is early stage, despite the hundreds of signed documents, but it means that it's the right time for Indonesia as the powerhouse as well. Now, hi Lorna, thank you for being with us today. Could you share us a little bit about the ICVCM and tell us where is Indonesia and how we can also use ICVCMs to help build confidence for good integrity carbon?
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me here to be on this panel. So those of you who aren't familiar with the work of the Integrity Council, we are an independent governance body for this. We have a continuous improvement work program, which focuses on looking at what the barriers are in the market to scale and how we can support the market to scale and unlock that. This is ensuring that our framework remains relevant to the latest. Available science and knowledge and best practice. But also we provide recommendations for the market more broadly. So it's not just about how we can adapt our assessment framework, but how the market can take forward some of our recommendations. So recently, for example, we published a report on permanence. This is a hot topic at the moment, particularly around forestry projects, and that work has fed into a lot of the work and conversations that are happening here today and this week through Article 6 as well. Alongside that, we work with various different countries. One of our goals is to see an interconnected and locally relevant carbon market. Sorry, whoever's controlling the slide, do you mind moving on one? So this is a very packed slide, so I don't expect you to read it all. But we've been working very closely with governments, and I think this is the key bit for Indonesia and the credibility is making sure that governments recognise the core carbon principles and are embedding them into their regulation. So as you can see, there are a lot of countries. Countries representing about a third of global demand have now endorsed or have set the intention to endorse ICVCM and the core carbon principles. So there's very clear demand signal. And we've also seen in the last week the Coalition to Grow Carbon Markets was launched with Kenya, UK, and Singapore, and they have also endorsed. So I think one of the
regulators to integrate that in the policy. Now let's talk about the demand side. I would like to introduce Mr. Jamie Mulligan. Hi, Jamie. Could you tell us a little bit about what you do at Amazon? Where does carbon credits take part? And can you give us also a little bit of teasers about the different programs that you do to find and have better quality credits?
Great, thank you, Ria. Thank you for having me here. Nice to see you all. Amazon has a net zero commitment, a 2040 net zero commitment called the Climate Pledge. We co-founded in 2019. And our first priority under that commitment is to decarbonize our own emissions across our value chain, across all three scopes of our businesses, which covers a wide range of sectors. They align with the science, so need to be driving mitigation outside of our value chain. And by 2040, we need to be balancing all of our remaining emissions with high quality carbon credits. And so that's my role, is to, from Amazon, steer our engagement in the carbon market, which is the vehicle for companies to drive scaled mitigation using market-based mechanisms. A few kind of attributes of the way we out carbon removal to balance all remaining emissions. So that's a priority for us. We can't wait to get that off the ground because it's going to take many decades to scale from where we are today to many. We also feel that we have an obligation to help support some of the major decarbonization imperatives that are right in front of us. And for us, the top priority is in forests. If you look at the IPCC pathways, essentially every pathway has a common feature, and that is global forest cover stops declining around 2030 and then begins to rebound over the remainder of the century. That is a harrowing imperative, and we felt sort of overcome with a sense of obligation to participate in that. So Amazon co-founded the LEAF Coalition, which is a public-private coalition to pledge financial support to jurisdictions that reduce deforestation, all three scopes. And by the time we get to 2040, most of our remaining emissions we expect will be in our scope 3, our suppliers' emissions. And so we're supporting them in a number of ways to help them to reduce the carbon in their own businesses. But they, like we, will also need to figure out how to participate in the carbon market in a high integrity way, in an impactful way. And the carbon market is fraught. It is difficult to navigate. It is complex. It is retooling. It is in the process of transformation. And so we don't want to distract our suppliers from focusing on buying renewable energy and shifting materials and improving efficiency and so on. And so we've created a service that lives on what we call the Sustainability Exchange that allows our suppliers simply to purchase credits from Amazon's portfolio so that they don't have to build their own internal teams to figure out how to navigate the market. So that's allows us then to focus this sort of combined demand from Amazon and our suppliers on some of the most impactful initiatives that we see, which hopefully will touch base in Indonesia in a significant way.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jamie. Can we have a round of applause for Jamie and all the efforts at Amazon? You really need to be one of the signatories of the UNFCCC agreement, I was saying, because your commitment is also very, very strong. Now, if we can go and invite the speaker who's joining us online, which is Mr. Kei Watanabe from the Musi Persada Group. You know, as you can see, all the panelists here represents all the different dimensions of carbon market, as we have regulators, we have market enablers, we have buyers and demand, and of course, we are joined online with Mr. Kei Watanabe, who would be representing the supply side as well. I know it is a bit of an odd hour in Indonesia. I am sure that we will get the connection soon.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Mr. Kei Watanabe. Can you hear us?
Hi. Yes.
Hi.
Clearly.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. If you, yeah, could you please introduce a little bit about the work that you do and how could that be a great contribution towards the new and up and coming open market of Indonesia, striving for high quality integrated credits? Please go ahead, Mr. K.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Natalia, again. Good morning in Brazil and selamat malam from Indonesia. And terhormat Bapak Ilham, esteemed speakers, all distinguished guests and participants, thank you so much. I'm Kei Watanabe, President Director of PT Musiftan Persada. It is truly an honor to join the session after participating in COP28 Dubai and COP30 this time. Today, as a forestry company, I'd like to share a somewhat different kind of story with you all. Next, please. We have developed plantation forests since 1991 on degraded land impacted by past unsustainable activities. Our concession covers 287,000 hectares, surrounded by 30 villages with more than 74,000 people, many still relying on traditional agriculture. This creates pressure on forests, leading to risks such as fire, illegal logging, land occupation, and wildlife poaching. Then our mission focuses on 3 points. First, reforesting unproductive areas. Second, restoring the environment and biodiversity. And third, improving community welfare. These missions directly address the triple planetary crisis: climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution, aligning our work with global climate goals. Next, please. We implement landscape zoning, 15% preservation area to protect biodiversity and carbon-rich ecosystems, and over 20% partnership area managed with communities, and a 55% production area. This enables multi-business forest management, timber production, non-timber development, and forest restoration to increase carbon capture. Next, please. We enhance carbon capture through superior clone seedlings, enhance silvicultural techniques to reduce environmental impact, and organic mulch soil enrichment. We continue research for higher productivity clones. Starting 2026, we will reforest 25,000 hectares with native species that will not be harvested. Next, please. Our preservation area covers 43,000 hectares, home to hundreds of plant species and wildlife species, including 6 critically endangered like Sumatran elephant, and 11 endangered Sumatran tiger, tapir, pangolin, or something. We continue effort to remain healthy for communities and wildlife as forestry company. Next, please. Our area in Bunakat Forest Group is one of only 22 remaining Sumatran elephant habitats. We enhance habitats through food plant enrichment, water reservoirs, salt licks, and community collaboration. Today, 4 elephant groups, 65 individuals live safely within our concession. Next, please. Regarding to the community collaboration, we implement 3 schemes to reduce land pressure. First, Forest Partnership Scheme. Second, MHBM scheme in our production area. And third, MHR scheme that will be transitioned into a concession partnership scheme. Total community benefits amounted to more than 100 billion Indonesian rupiah, equivalent to more than $6 million. These kind of partnerships reduce deforestation risk and support carbon outcomes. Next, please. As forestry company, of course, effective fire control is crucial to protecting carbon stocks. We continue efforts for fire prevention all year round, as shown on this page. Our performance has been repeatedly recognized by the states, including the latest awards last week on 11th November. Next, please. In line with stronger momentum of decarbonization all over the globe, we are preparing more than 270,000 hectare carbon project That includes reforestation and avoiding deforestation, degradation, and agroforestry partnerships. Estimated impact would be almost 1 million CO2 ton of verified carbon units per year over 10 years, supporting Indonesia's NDC commitments. And regarding to biomass species, if we can switch the biomass tree species that we are growing together with the communities to fossil fuel alternatives, the CO2 emissions should become neutral. If we could implement CCS with this biomass-derived CO2, we might be able to further advance BECS in Indonesia. We look forward to governmental support as well. Aside from our direct activity, we are not directly involved though. I have heard that our shareholder, Marubeni Corporation, has been conducting feasibility studies together with Pertamina. I understand the project is still ongoing, in progress, but I hope this kind of biomass-related decarbonization will proceed successfully. Next, please. Thank you for your kind attention to our brief presentation. We are a group member of Marubeni Corporation, who has been exploring series of carbon projects like CCS and other ARR projects around the world. So leveraging its relationship asset with them, we MHP also pursue for carbon capture, climate mitigation, and sustainable development in alignment with the Indonesian government and international circumstances. Thank you again, and I'm closing my presentation. Thanks.
All right, can we have a round of applause for Mr. Kei Watanabe for the presentation? And as you can see, it's one of the example of an integrated approach for decarbonization for forestry company, and which we can find more as an example in Indonesia. Now, let's go to the moderated panel questions, where the first theme that we're going to talk about is what's next and where is the lay of the land. Let's start with you, Pa Aldi. In terms of regulation, the market has been waiting for this moment, right? It has been more than 3 years in the making. When are we going to see the first trade of voluntary carbon market credits in Indonesia? What needs to happen and when? Here.
All right, thank you. You didn't brief this question before to me. Different audience. So thank you for such a very brilliant question. So we expect, I don't know, I'm seeing Jamie because we've talked a lot with this, I would say the excess credit, yeah, for example. Let's do hopefully within the next 2 to 3 months we're gonna have the first credit. So we to be honest, I mean, as a representative of the task force, we've been talking with the whole, the buyers, investors, globally, and then we have shared our the government of Indonesian interest, to build this carbon market all together with the private, and then the thing is, when it comes to the high integrity and quality carbon, like I would say, the 100% of the investors are very interested in doing this in carbon, especially with the Amazon, because we were kind of surprised when we start talking with the, how do we, can we do this all together, with the private and also government provide the clear and also regulations, to the market. So expectation to do hopefully within the next 2 to 3 months. But one more thing, it's we're not only talking with the short term. So we've been talking with all investors for the short term, mid term, as well as the long term strategy. For example, I'm not trying to over promising to the public that we also talk with the next 30, 60, 100 years of the replanting, the removal. It's gonna be, it's gonna be very great for Indonesia because we have huge potential of the open area. And then I believe that ICPC, AMIATA, and also Amazon, we are all agree that's one of the priority that the Indonesian government have to be very focused. And the other thing is the community and also indigenous people, because again, as the Indonesian government will let the B2B work as the business as usual. But we are here as the government. We have to be very focused on the community, you know. And then also we talked a lot with the Jamie before today's event that we're going to have a very great project upcoming in Indonesia. Think about, guys. Think about at the moment. Think about like a lot of farmers in Indonesia. They wanna also be part of the carbon market, but they need like a fund from the carbon fund, you know. But the thing is, we used to have the carbon fund directly goes to the market, like to the community, to the government. But what we are discussing as of today, from now onwards, will also be putting this carbon fund as the whole collateral. Think about, we put the carbon fund on the collateral, so then the national bank and also the local bank can also be part, you know, on doing the investment as the carbon fund as the collateral, not directly this carbon fund goes directly to the market. So something like that. So it's going to be fun. Indonesia is going to be, I would say, the most bigger, you know, player in the high integrity, high quality carbon, you know, from the forestry. One more thing example. Think about community living in the near forest, you know, but they want to build the micro hydroelectric, for example. Bank cannot invest the money because there is no such of collateral, right? So this new concept will allow the national and also local bank to be part of the whole carbon market. So we put the carbon market fund into the collateral, and then local bank play their roles on doing the investment, and then we'll also be educate the farmers or the local and social community to do the business with the local bank, you know. So that's something that's going to be fun that we're going to have in Indonesia. So if you're asking what's next, that's going to be fun. Thank you.
It's going to be fine. It's great to hear, Pa Aldi. And what I'm hearing is all the infrastructure regarding like what Pa Ilham was mentioning about stroke and the other regulations and also the access to capital is progressing. So then the idea is to have everything in place, hopefully 2 months, 3 months time to make it happen. Now, Andrea, you have seen it different markets before, right? And you have been supporting different markets, economies in setting up their carbon system, right? Now the question for you, what would be the one piece of advice for Indonesia, both for regulators, players, anyone, to avoid early stage pitfalls so that we can have a long-term market that is sustainable?
Hey, if I may, 2 pieces of advice. So I'll summarize with 2 words: stability and interoperability. So stability is simple. We need clear rules that are certain, that allow investors, developers to plan over time. These are projects that take several years to come to fruition, from the planning stage to when the credits are finally issued and sold. And the uncertainty around changes in the regulatory framework is something that sometimes turns potentially good projects into projects that don't go ahead. So I think now we have this new presidential regulation. We have a clear responsibilities allocated with the sectoral ministries. My piece of advice would be not to change again. So that's one. The second, interoperability. I think it's important for market players to have options, to have optionalities. And when they start a project, they can develop projects for to sell to a foreign country under Article 6, to sell on the voluntary market, to sell to airlines under CORSIA, or even domestically to domestic players. And if the market is not based on interoperable standards, you force developers and investors to pick one market segment from the early stages, and that eventually reduces the value of the projects. So it's kind of limiting the value that can be generated with any given project. So I mean, previously there was a national standard. There has been a lot of work on mutual recognition agreements. There was a lot of friction in the system. I think now recognizing a series of standards that are interoperable across markets, that are recognized by international players, I think it's what will really help the market grow faster.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I guess the question and your point about interoperability is very key because it's also becoming the bridge for integrity, right? Because it's difficult if we talk about different languages and different methodologies. Now, when we talk also about integrity, right? I think I would love to start with Jamie here. How are you seeing, what are the challenges in finding high integrity credits? And I think you have also your initiative in making sure that there is high integrity credits. What are they? Could you tell us a little bit about the genesis and where is the market right now in terms of integrity?
So over the last, I would say, well, a few years ago, I think there has been increased attention on quality in the carbon market, on the rigor of the methodologies that are used to create carbon credits, and I think an increased understanding that that sort of 1.0 version of the carbon market needs to continue to advance and to retool to really enable folks to trust that the credits coming to market really represent what they claim to. That's been difficult for the market. You have a sort of a number of legacy players in the market that had invested in building projects, and the market was just sort of really starting to get off the ground, and then some sort of realizations about some quality improvements that were needed. I have to say I really welcome that raised awareness. When we started about 6 years ago, we decided that we need to be able to think for ourselves, and we need to be able to trust ourselves that the way that we're investing our money is creating this kind of impact. So we have our own science team within Amazon that thinks about carbon accounting, and whenever we decide to move into a project type, we start with a science assessment. We say, how would we do impact evaluation in this kind of intervention? And how does that line up with the way that the existing methodologies work? And where there are gaps, how do we close those gaps? Can we work with the carbon standards to improve their methodologies? In the case of restoration, for example, we worked with Vera both to advance their VM47 methodology for reforestation, but also create what's called the Abacus label, which has a number of additional requirements that sort of bolt on top of that methodology to really be sort of best in class. What's important for us is, especially in projects like reforestation, it's capital intensive, right? You need a lot of money up front to do high quality restoration, and the payback period is long. And so in order to get those projects financed, you need a credit-worthy buyer who will sign a long-term offtake agreement, like 15 years, that says every year when this project generates credits, we promise to buy it, and that's what allows the bank to say, okay, we'll finance that. That puts the risk on the buyer that the standard that we agree to when we sign the offtake agreement will still be best in class, market leading from a quality standpoint, not just next year, but in 15 years from now. And so we really have to future-proof our standards. We spend a lot of time on the front end thinking about the quality of the credit. But I'll add, I think there's been a lot of attention on the quality of the credit, on the carbon accounting that goes into the credits, and that's absolutely necessary. But sometimes I think we lose sight of the quality of the solution. And there are lots of interventions you can do and create a high-quality credit, and yet you have sort of an isolated impact on the world. And I've got limited time on this planet, and I really view carbon credits not as an end in itself, but a tool for catalysts, for catalyzing the kinds of systems changes that we need to really solve the climate crisis. And from the kind of business standpoint as well, I always have to marry up the impact I want to have in the world and the strategy I want to take with the business case for it. From a business standpoint, we need to have large-scale kind of availability of high-quality credits. And if we're having little isolated interventions that aren't snowballing, that don't have the prospect of snowballing, we're not going to get the kind of scale that we need either in the supply, just the supply of credits. So we always obsess about. I like to say my science team spends their day hours obsessing about the quality of the credit, and we lose sleep at night thinking about the quality of the solution. And so, rather than sort of, buying farms, for example, and reforesting them, I want to start with the government and develop a coherent theory of change and a strategy for unlocking large-scale restoration across the landscape, and how we can serve as a sort of an anchor buyer to bring in the finance to kickstart that kind of systems-level intervention.
Thank you so much, Jamie. I think it's very important. Maybe to Lorna, and still the topic of integrity, right? How are you seeing this? Like what Jamie's saying, like everyone has more and more scrutiny about quality integrity. Do you think the definition of integrity in a way is going to converge to one, or going to be more standards, more diverse definition of it? What's your take on it?
I think we can see already in the market that there's a convergence in standards, and I completely agree with what Andrea is saying. Like, you cannot, setting specific methodologies for a specific project is just not the way to scale the market. You need project developers to know that they can sell to a broad range of markets, not just voluntary, but also compliance. And one of the things that we're doing at ICVCM is ensuring that, and like I mentioned, the permanence report earlier feeding into the Article 6 process, we also are following the Article 6 process closely. We align with the standards set out in Article 6. And so countries can use CCP labelled credits, and some are starting to do that for their 6.2 cooperative approaches, as well as it being used for the voluntary market. And of course, we're CORSIA Plus as well, so it can also be used for CORSIA. And that's definitely the direction that we see the market going in, and I think that's the only way that it will really scale. And I think what's really important as well is that it's globally connected, but also that it's locally relevant. And one of the key things for us is, so we've now approved nearly 40 methodologies, and this means that different countries can use methodologies that are relevant to them and are best suited for their context, but they still meet that high integrity threshold.
Yeah, no, thanks, Lorna. I think that's one I want to have a quick deep dive for the two of you regarding the definition of integrity, right? Specific countries, tropical countries such as Indonesia, have enormous landscape, for example, talking about peatlands that may have not been represented enough in these high quality credits that have been labeled, right? So do you think there is a need to actually look into more region-specific methodology to really, translate integrity to what the local qualities are?
I can take a first stab at that. Of course, everything needs to be adapted to the local context. The opportunities, the mitigation opportunities are different. The local kind of the customs, the way that the communities interact with the land, the drivers of deforestation, these are all different. So the solution needs to be tailored to the context. But I will say there are some commonalities that we see. We have a global portfolio, and we think about deforestation and reforestation in places as diverse as Brazil and Ghana and Indonesia. Very different drivers of deforestation, very different regulatory and legal contexts, different social contexts. But at the same time, we consistently come back to the same kind of point of view, which is that you really need to have, on the deforestation side especially, you really need to have robust public sector mechanisms. You need to have good governance, good protections for the forest, good enforcement of those protections. You need to have recognition of indigenous rights. You need to have good agricultural sector planning. And you have to have on-the-ground work with communities. And we need to marry these two kinds of approaches. And so that sort of consistently led us to a sort of a nested jurisdictional approach where we're providing resources through a government program that supports the implementation of those public sector mechanisms, but in a framework that also allows project developers and local communities themselves to develop their own interventions that are tailored to their sort of micro context at the very local scale and plug into that a consistent governance framework. And so I think that's the future, and looking forward to the development of that within this new framework in Indonesia.
Do you want to add anything, Lorna? Okay.
I think I'd just like to emphasize the point you're making about local communities. For us, that's really important. When we're thinking about integrity, it's about not just the ensuring that the credit represents a verified reduction and removal, but also that it supports sustainable development and the protection of nature. And one of the things that we've been doing is we've established an independent forum for Indigenous people and local communities. And they just this week launched their platform to help indigenous people and local communities to engage in carbon markets and really hear their voice in this process.
Thank you so much, Lorna. We've heard about where we need to be in terms of what's ideal in terms of integrity. Let's talk about where are the gaps. How can we get there? Do we still have Mr. K. Watanabe on the line? Is
Yes.
Mr. Watanabe still, yes, with us? Thank you for still sticking around with us. So could you share us from your perspective as one of the project owners, what are the challenges to implement and strive for these high quality and high integrity credits to be generated, please?
Okay, thank you for asking. One of the biggest challenge is the relationship with the local community, I guess. And the high integrity carbon performance can only be achieved when mitigation actions run effectively. MLV is conducted using systematic, transparent, and credible methods, and the project activities genuinely involve local communities who in turn receive benefits that improve their welfare. As explained in my presentation as well, within and around the borders of our concession area, there are 30 villages with a total population 74,000 people. Our greatest challenge is how to educate and engage in both these communities so that they become part of this carbon capture project and refrain from clearing and burning forests for agricultural land conversion. Therefore, partnering with local communities is very essential. We have developed two voluntary partnership schemes, namely, like I said, MHBM, MHR, as well as one mandatory partnership scheme. Convincing community is certainly not so easy, but over the past 4 years, we have reached and signed cooperation agreements with more than 100 farmer groups, almost 9,000 hectares. Although this is still far from our target, we continue to move forward, of course, with more innovative approaches. We also appreciate full support from the government to help engage the communities that we are going to strive together with local people for decarbonized world. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. K. Watanabe. Before asking Pa Aldi what could the government do, just one last question on gaps, please, Andrea, in terms of where Indonesia is, where we need to be, what are the other gaps you think?
Well, I think it's at this stage it's more important to move on and get things done. I say a gap is probably a tangible proof that the market can work, that credits can be exported. I think we're very close to that in the voluntary market. It's only some technical, some time that's needed to finalize some steps. But also I think where the market is heading and where the higher prices will be is those are in those market segments with corresponding adjustments. So I think the Indonesian government has always been open to providing corresponding adjustments, but now I think we need to see how that will be applied, and that will definitely catalyze a lot more activities and investment.
Thank you, Andrea. And hold your thoughts about the compliance and international market. Pa Aldi, I have a very tough question for you. So how can the government help, or what do you think is needed to help these projects owners to overcome these gaps and challenges?
The project owner?
Or any
relevant. That's another good question. So think about, Indonesia, we've been part of this carbon market since, 20 years back, right? So we did a very good job when it comes to the early 2000, yeah. And then somehow, for some reasons, we've been quiet for the last 10 years, yeah. Now the government is kind of opening the whole market, the VCM, the Article 6, so with the CA, with no CA, so we're kind of very open with all the options, yeah. But the thing is, you're right. I mean, we've been part of this ecosystem since long time ago, and now we are kind of, doing this path in terms of continuing this path. You are going to head into heading into the high integrity and high quality carbon market, which is the first thing we have to do from the government perspective. We have to also educate ourselves. That's why we have the ICVCM. We did, signing MOU with the ICVCM. To be honest, first thing that ICVCMs have to be educate the government what are the high integrity, high quality, carbon, and that's why ICVCM is also here. After the government, we also have to educate the whole stakeholders, the project proponent and project owners, and also the buyers and investors. And when it comes to buyers and investors, we believe that they are already on there, in terms of the perspective of this high quality, high integrity. So, but next step is the convincing the project owners and project proponent in Indonesia, because the government is opening the gate, but we are going to do the high integrity, high quality. So we believe, we've talked with the Vera, the ERS, the R3s, all the Plan FIFO gold standard, that we've talked with them, and then we consistently shared to them that, look, the government is opening the VCM, but we are going to have the high quality and high integrity approach. So those, I think, going to be closing the gaps. And then when it comes to everyone agree on what's the next steps, I think, again, Indonesia going to be the one of numero uno, of the global carbon market and the high integrity, high quality carbon.
Thank you so much, Pa Aldi. And I think that maybe closes in a way our discussion on voluntary carbon market. Let's now talk about the other market, which is the compliance market. Let's start with you, Andrea. Can you give us a sense how the compliance market is shaping up? What is the outlook today, and what does it take for Indonesia to actually also contribute there?
Yeah, as I said, this is where growth is expected and where prices will most likely be significantly higher than in the VCM. I believe there will always be some voluntary demand from corporates for credits without a corresponding adjustment, but I think the correspondingly adjusted market segment is quite important. Just to give you a few figures for a sense of proportion, the largest buyer at the moment is Japan. They have a target for 100 million tons by 2030, and they're going to double that in the next decade, from 2030 to 2040. And another key development is a policy change in the European Union. They have always focused on domestic action. All the climate targets were domestic only. They have been domestic for some years. But now in the 2040 targets, they announced that it will purchase a significant amount from 2036 onward, and with a pilot program starting in 2031. There's still debate around the figures, but from what I hear, they go from 400 to 750 million tons in the 5 years from 2036 to 2040. So, and it takes time to generate this amount of credit. It takes time for a government to provide the corresponding adjustment. So I think there's a lot of work to focus on, and for Indonesia to be prepared as a seller, to know what they want to sell, what's beneficial for Indonesia to sell, and yeah, so we're very excited about what's coming forward.
Very exciting. And just in the topic about, compliance market and international markets, right? Is there any possibility of linkages between the ETS market, or I just want to see whether, there is a room for Indonesia not only to think about voluntary carbon market, but also its own ETS, right, which is currently ongoing. Is there a possibility to link, what will be the options or scenarios to link between domestic ETS markets towards the international ones?
Certainly something that can be explored. It is technically very complicated, and a linkage makes sense if the two systems are relatively close to each other. So the only linkage we have now, well, no, there are two. There's one between the EU ETS and the Swiss ETS, and then there's a linkage between the ETS of California and the ETS of Quebec. So as you can see, these are relatively similar economy that had a relatively similar emission trading system to start with. For Indonesia, I think I see potential in linking with some of its regional neighbors that are starting to develop their own ETS, to create links between the high price markets such as the EU ETS and Indonesia. I think transactions under Article 6 are what holds the most potential.
That's amazing. But the more challenging it is, the more worth it is. So all the best to you all, regulators. As you mentioned, Mr. Andrea, Japan is also the largest buyer, right? 100 million tons by 2030. Maybe can we get your view, Mr. Watanabe, right? As a company who is also having partnership with Japanese entities in Indonesia, what are the opportunities and challenges to implement the mutual recognition agreement between Japan and Indonesia in the conversation of carbon credits? Over to you, Mr. Watanabe.
Yeah. Thank you. As a Japanese-owned company operating in Indonesia, we are PDMHP, this MRA is highly positive, actually. The expansion of potential buyers and export destinations for our credits enables us to move forward with carbon projects more proactively and vigorously. Moreover, the fact that this scheme contributes to both Indonesia's and Japan's LDC's market is highly meaningful. We will await clear operational guidelines, particularly regarding the scheme aspects such as corresponding adjustments. And we will proceed with preparations such as developing the DRAM, and establishing the MRV methodology for SRM system registration. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Watanabe-san. Now, I think let's also now talk about, the crossover between voluntary carbon markets and also the compliance market. Maybe Jamie, over to you. What is your view on the existence and long-lastingness of voluntary carbon markets? Do we have a date, and what may affect Amazon's commitment?
I think the voluntary carbon market is here to stay. When I started about 6 years ago, I think there was people in the kind of nature-based solutions and climate space sort of viewed the voluntary carbon market as kind of a temporary stopgap, kind of a stepping stone. And I mean, it was created really just to sort of channel more money from companies to do good things. And it's done that, it's been doing that. But I think with the sort of wave of net zero commitments from companies, I mean, my company is very serious about this commitment, and I don't think there's anything that would put us off. We had the opportunity to purchase the naming rights for a hockey arena in Seattle, and it's not the Amazon Arena, it's the Climate Pledge Arena. And so it's actually on the skyline of our city now, is our climate commitment. So we went through we call it a one-way door at Amazon. There's no going back. We went through a one-way door on this commitment. Most of what I do in the carbon market is principally about voluntary purchasing for a voluntary commitment. That voluntary is probably the wrong word. I mean, it's not optional, but we do expect that some portions of our footprint will become subject to compliance regimes, and that's in my view, that's positive. And so for the same reasons that we want to make sure that the standards that we're using are high quality, so that we continue to feel good about what we're doing and build trust with our stakeholders, that should also make sure that those standards should line up with rigorous compliance requirements when those come into place. So we should be well positioned, because we're not starting on the heels of our feet. When a new compliance obligation comes along, we have a portfolio, we're investing, we know how to do it, we know how to navigate the standards and so on.
Thank you so much, Jamie. It is here to stay. That's great. And now maybe for Lorna, to further evangelize integrity, right? How can standards like those approved by ISO VCM coexist or integrate with these government-to-government Article 6 systems?
I think, as I said earlier, but I think we are seeing an increasing convergence. I agree. I don't think the voluntary market is going to completely disappear, but I think particularly around the integrity threshold and the standards, we're definitely seeing a convergence where I think a lot of market participants on the voluntary side are recognizing the benefits of aligning with Article 6, with ICBCM, because they know that they can tap into, Corsair, the demand, and it's 100 million for next year, but then it gets into the billions, I think, by 2030. So it's a huge source of demand from the compliance side of the market. And I think a lot of project developers and market participants want to be able to tap into that. And I think we see our role as a kind of bridging between voluntary and compliance standards.
Thank you so much, Lorna. So that is the end of the moderated session. I do have one last surprise question for everyone, which will be your also closing statements. But before that, I think we would love to open the floor for questions. Maybe if we're lucky, we could entertain 1 or 2 questions. It's 0 minutes now, but I think just 1 questions. Okay, 1 quick question and then 1 statement, closing statements.
Hello. Hi. Mark Tilley here from Carbon Pulse. Lufali, and Andrea, do you have any perception of how this new protocol that's been adopted by Indonesia on carbon trading has been accepted by the legacy carbon developers who are already existing? Because they've been waiting for several years now to be able to have new credits issued to be able to generate new credits and sell them. Is there any indication that from them, do you think that this is going to help expedite that process? Thank you.
Yeah, go straight to the question. It's a very good question. So next step, so you have to wait for the Ministry Regulation number 7, yeah, Pak Ilham. So Ministry Forestry will stipulate the upcoming number 7. So it's supposedly going to be very soon because the top leadership has, been very, pushing us, working so hard to get these things done. So we do hopefully sometime in the next 3 to 4 weeks, we're going to stipulate that. But then don't have to worry so much because the whole approval, the whole steps are very clear under the Ministry of number 7. One thing that you have to make sure is the approval just right before the issuance. All right. So in the case that you have gone through all the process until the MRV and done the verification, but just right before the issuance, you need to go to the Ministry of Forestry and asking the approval. That's it. And then again, the new Perpres showing the commitment of Indonesian government to really open the VCM, But then just to make sure that the high quality and high integrity, that's why we keep some other bureaucracy steps to be there, just to make sure the check and balance, yeah. Because we're going to open, but then the Ministry of Forestry will be the responsible person who oversee the whole from the forestry sector. Yeah, hope that answered the question.
Thank you, Pak Aldin. Let's wait for the new permanent regulation. And to close this session, last closing statements from everyone. What do you hope for Indonesia to have achieved by the end of COP31 next year? Any volunteers who's ready? Otherwise, let's start with Jamie.
My hope is that by COP31, we're up here talking about the real investments on the ground, real money flowing, real people benefiting, and under initiatives with a significant scale of ambition and strong governance.
Right, Lorna?
Tough question. I'm a ex-policy person, so I'm going to be on the policy side, but I think all the work that's gone into the presidential regulation is really impressive, and the governance system that's set up there. But I think it's the actual implementation of that and how governments, the different departments work together and working with the Indonesian government as well to support alignment with the core carbon principles. Hopefully next COP will have significant progress on that.
Yeah, but COP31 is around the corner. 12 months is a very short time. I would say I would hope to see some CORSIA eligible credits from Indonesia. As I said, this is the first compliant deadline that we have in carbon markets, and I think it's important that this market is well supplied, and there are opportunities for Indonesia as well.
And before Pak Aldi, Pak Kei Watanabe, would you like to share your hope?
Okay, so yeah, in my opinion, the key point is how to secure the investment for more higher integrity carbon credit. So we'd love to show more specific progress projects maybe in next COP31. Thank you.
Thank you. And to close all the hope, over to you, Pa Aldi.
It's 0 minutes we have. So think about government is trying to be very inclusive, okay, in this process. So we engage with all the relevant stakeholders since the beginning. Before the pair press we stipulated, we engage with all the relevant stakeholders. And then expectation is quite high. Yeah, the only thing we can do is just let's do it. That's it.
All right, let's do it, ladies and gentlemen. Please give a round of applause for this amazing panel to close our session today. Thank you very much, everyone.